When the temperature dropped to minus 42 degrees that November night in 1968, I knew my radio weather forecast had lied to me. The wind was coming from the north at 35 miles per hour, gusting higher. The meteorologist said clear skies for another 24 hours. I had maybe 6 hours before the real storm hit. If I'd trusted that radio any longer, I wouldn't be here telling you this story. See, everyone in those mountains relied on those weather reports. The radio was gospel. It had to be. But I'd noticed something nobody else was paying attention to. 3 days before that storm, the squirrels changed their behavior completely. They were gathering nuts frantically, moving in tight vertical patterns up the trees instead of their normal horizontal foraging. The wind at 3 in the morning shifted from southwest to due north. The clouds that morning had this peculiar texture, like someone had combed them with fine teeth. Scientists would have called it coincidence. They did call it coincidence. But I'd seen this exact pattern 7 times in the previous 5 years. And every single time, a serious storm arrived in exactly 48 hours. I'd already lost supplies twice that year to unexpected weather. 50 pounds of dried meat ruined, 2 shelter repairs after ice damage. I wasn't going to ignore what I was seeing just because city meteorologists said I was seeing things. The question wasn't whether to believe my observations or the radio. The question was whether I wanted to keep surviving out here. I was 32 years old, 14 years into my isolation in the Rocky Mountains. I'd come out here in 1954 with basic hunting skills and city-bred confidence. I knew nothing about reading weather the way the old-timers did. Back then, I thought instruments were superior to observation. I was wrong about that. My first winter alone, I made mistake after mistake. I'd get caught in sudden freezes because I trusted forecasts that were sometimes 200 miles off. I wasted entire days preparing for storms that never came, then got surprised by ones the radio never predicted. I remember one March blizzard that came in faster than I believed possible. The radio said light snow. I was 3 miles from shelter when visibility dropped to nothing. I spent 9 hours in a whiteout at 15 below zero, half convinced I was going to die. Lost most of my supplies that day. Lost my confidence in that radio too. After that, I started paying attention to everything else. Every animal behavior, every wind pattern, every cloud formation. I began keeping detailed notes. I wanted to understand what the squirrels and the wind and the clouds knew that the meteorologists didn't. Then I met old Charlie. He was a Blackfoot hunter who's still trapped in the high country, 73 years old when we first crossed paths in 1956. He came through my area tracking elk. We talked for 2 days straight. Charlie told me something I'll never forget. He said, "The animals don't lie. The wind doesn't lie. The sky doesn't lie. Only men lie about what they see." He taught me to watch squirrel behavior not as random activity, but as a language. When they're sensing a pressure drop coming, they move different. They gather faster. They climb vertically instead of spreading out. It's connected to barometric pressure shifts that happen before storms. I'll admit I was skeptical at first. This was 1956. I had access to modern science. Why would I trust a 73-year-old hunter over meteorological instruments? But Charlie's logic made sense. He'd been doing this for 50 years. He showed me his own journals, dating back to 1906. His storm predictions were remarkably accurate. So I listened, and I started testing his methods. Then years later, around 1962, I met an old weather observer named Dmitri. He was Russian, had come to Canada decades back. He'd been trained as a meteorologist before the war. What fascinated Dmitri was that modern meteorology ignored something ancient observers had always known. He showed me how atmospheric pressure changes create electromagnetic shifts that animals respond to. Birds fly different. Insects move different. Wind patterns shift in specific ways. Clouds form specific textures. These aren't superstitions. These are physical phenomena. Modern science had just decided to ignore them in favor of instruments. The principle is straightforward, really. When a pressure system approaches, the atmosphere changes. Animals sense this. Plants respond. Wind direction shifts in predictable patterns. Clouds form in specific ways based on the pressure gradient. Meteorological instruments measure pressure, but by the time you get a reading and relay it, you're often behind the actual change. Nature broadcasts these changes through multiple channels simultaneously if you know how to read them. The squirrels are reading barometric pressure. The wind is reflecting pressure gradients. The clouds are forming based on moisture and pressure interactions. Everything is connected. For years, I doubted whether this knowledge was really reliable. Scientists had dismissed it as folklore, but I couldn't ignore the results. Every time I combined all these observations together, my accuracy was extraordinary. So I decided to stop doubting and start documenting everything systematically. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to read what the animals, the wind, and the sky are constantly telling you. I'm going to teach you the same system I've used for 40 years in the most unforgiving weather conditions on this continent. You'll learn to predict storms with precision that'll surprise you. The first major change was shifting my observation point to a specific location that mattered absolutely. I couldn't observe from just anywhere. I needed high ground with full exposure to incoming weather systems. I set up on a ridge 2,300 feet above the valley floor, facing northeast where storms originated. Open exposure meant no trees blocking wind patterns or cloud formations. I stayed at least 120 feet from any tall timber. This positioning let me detect pressure changes before they reached lower elevations. You'll know you've found the right spot when wind reaches you before it hits the valley below. Finding this location took me 3 full days of testing different ridges. The principle is simple. Pressure systems move through the atmosphere like waves. Higher elevation detects these waves first. Without proper positioning, you're always reading old data. The second major change involved creating a systematic observation routine I never missed. I observed at exactly 3 in the morning every single night for the first 30 days. 3 in the morning matters because wind patterns shift most dramatically then. That's when pressure changes become visible in wind direction. I added dawn observations within the first 20 minutes after sunrise. Clouds form specific patterns only during this window. I watched squirrel behavior during their peak activity hours between 7 and 9 in the morning. The sequence couldn't change. Wind reading first, then cloud observation, then animal behavior confirmation. I maintained this routine for 90 consecutive days before I trusted my own data. You'll know the pattern is emerging when the same 3 indicators align on the same day. The error most people make is skipping observations when they're tired or busy. Consistency is non-negotiable. The third major change was integrating all 7 indicators into a single validation system. Squirrel behavior alone wasn't enough. Cloud texture alone wasn't enough. Wind direction alone wasn't enough. I needed all 3 to confirm each other. I developed a simple scoring system. Each indicator was worth 1 point when present. Squirrels gathering frantically meant 1 point. North wind shift meant 1 point. High-altitude cirrus clouds with that specific comb texture meant 1 point. When I hit 6 or 7 points on the same day, I could predict a storm arriving in exactly 48 hours. When I only had 2 or 3 points, I stayed alert but didn't prepare for heavy weather. This convergence was my validation system. You'll know it's working when your predictions start matching reality within a 2-hour window. It took me 56 separate observations before my accuracy jumped above 85%. Don't trust single indicators, trust only convergence. The fourth element addressed seasonal calibration. Summer pressure systems behave differently than winter pressure systems. Spring storms move different than fall storms. I had to recalibrate my entire system 4 times yearly. In summer, that 3 in the morning wind shift happens 30 minutes earlier due to solar heating patterns. Squirrels gather food differently based on daylight hours and seasonal breeding. Cloud formations change based on how much moisture is available in different seasons. I reset my observation point during the first week of March, June, September, and December. I kept separate journals for each season. This took me 4 full years to master properly. You'll know you've got it right when your accuracy stays above 90% across all 4 seasons. Most people apply the same observations everywhere. That's how they fail. The 5th element involved rigorous documentation and continuous validation. I kept a waterproof journal. Every observation got recorded with exact times, wind directions and compass degrees, cloud descriptions, and animal behaviors. After each prediction, I recorded whether I was correct and by how many hours. I marked wrong predictions in red ink, correct predictions in black ink. After 50 observations, I calculated my accuracy percentage. I tracked my margins of error. Most predictions came within plus or minus 90 minutes. Some were exact. A few were off by 3 to 4 hours. I never counted my wins while ignoring my losses. That's confirmation bias. I looked at everything equally. After 120 observations over 9 months, my accuracy had reached 91%. You'll know you're ready to trust your system when you've documented over 100 predictions with 90% accuracy across different seasons. The documentation eliminates guessing. It replaces hope with data. My first real test came in late September 1964. I'd been documenting my observations for exactly 30 days. The weather that morning was clear, 58 degrees Fahrenheit at dawn. But that night at 3 in the morning, I noticed the wind shift from southeast to due north. The barometer in my cabin had dropped 0.2 inches in 6 hours. The squirrels were gathering pine nuts frantically, moving in tight vertical patterns I'd learned meant pressure dropping fast. Those high-altitude cirrus clouds appeared at sunrise, thin and feathered, stretching across the entire northeastern sky. I made my prediction. Storm arrives in exactly 48 hours. Moderate to heavy snow, with winds gusting to 40 miles per hour. The radio said clear skies for another 72 hours. The previous forecast had been accurate maybe 60% of the time. I'd already lost count of how many times it failed me. This time I ignored the radio completely. I reinforced my shelter. I brought in extra firewood. I secured my supplies. I waited. At 3 in the afternoon, exactly 48 hours later, the first snow began falling. By midnight, we had 18 inches on the ground. The wind reached 42 miles per hour. By morning, 32 inches had accumulated. The storm lasted 36 hours total. I'd predicted it perfectly. The radio had been wrong by 3 full days. That single success changed everything for me. I'd proven it worked once. But I needed more data. I needed decades of validation. I kept testing this system consistently through 1965 and 1966. After 100 observations, my accuracy was 88%. After 200 observations across 2 full years, my accuracy jumped to 91%. I'd reduced my margin of error to plus or minus 75 minutes on average. Compared to radio forecasts in that era, I was dramatically more accurate. Radio meteorologists were right about 55 to 60% of the time. I was right 91% of the time. That's a 36% improvement in reliability. More important than raw accuracy was consistency. The radio might get a storm right but miss its intensity. I caught both arrival time and intensity through my 7-indicator system. I used this system for 40 continuous years. I made over 2,000 weather predictions. I was accurate on 1,818 of them. That's a 90.9% success rate across 4 decades. I remember one prediction that literally saved my life. February 1982, brutally cold winter. Temperature was already minus 11 degrees Fahrenheit. My squirrel observations showed panic gathering. The wind pattern shifted wrong. Those lenticular clouds appeared over the ridge. Every indicator pointed to a massive pressure drop coming. I predicted a severe blizzard arriving in exactly 48 hours with wind gusts exceeding 60 miles per hour. I reinforced my shelter with extra insulation. I stockpiled 3 weeks of firewood instead of 1. I sealed every gap. 48 hours later, that blizzard hit exactly on schedule. Wind gusted to 63 miles per hour. Visibility dropped to 10 feet. Temperature plummeted to minus 38 degrees Fahrenheit. The blizzard lasted 62 hours. If I hadn't seen those indicators, if I'd been caught in my normal shelter with inadequate supplies, I wouldn't have survived. I've shared this knowledge with other trappers and hunters over the years. I've taught it to 16 different people directly. They've all reported similar accuracy rates once they committed to the disciplined observation process. Modern weather apps exist today. Satellite technology is impressive, but these systems fail when you're beyond cell service, which is exactly when you need weather prediction most. My system costs $0 and works anywhere on Earth. Satellites fail, batteries die, signal disappears. The squirrels never stop transmitting. The wind never stops showing you what's coming. The clouds never stop telling their story. This knowledge worked in 1964. It works in 2025. It'll work forever because it's based on direct observation of physical principles that never change. Nature broadcasts constant information to anyone willing to listen. For 40 years I listened. Every day I watched. Every prediction I recorded. Every result I learned from. Today I'm passing this to you so you don't have to spend 4 decades learning what I learned the hard way. You can start reading the weather today using the same system that kept me alive through countless dangerous seasons in the mountains. The knowledge is simple. The discipline is what separates success from failure. Are you willing to observe? Are you ready to listen? If you found this knowledge valuable, subscribe to this channel right now. I release new survival techniques every single week, all of them tested across my 40 years in isolation. Activate the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. Drop a like on this one if you found it useful. Leave a comment below and tell me this. Have you ever used natural observation to predict weather? What results did you get? I read every comment, and I'd love to hear your story. Next week I'm showing you something even more accurate than squirrels. Birds detect pressure changes faster and further in advance than any other animal. I've documented a system using bird flight patterns that predicts storms up to 72 hours out. You'll see a link to that video appearing on your screen right now. Click it and I'll see you there. Let me be clear about something. This channel presents educational fiction designed to teach practical survival principles, created with assistance from artificial intelligence. These are real techniques grounded in real observations, but presented through a storytelling format for educational purposes. The principles work, the discipline required works, the validation across decades works. That's what matters when your life depends on reading what nature's telling you. Stay safe out there. And remember, nature never lies. You just have to learn the language.